months ago introduced us to an incredible new innovation, a product that's coming out, the water machine. There's other products coming out as well, but this is one that's really an absolute game changer. And we're fortunate here at the headquarters. We just received our water machines here. And so I'm excited today to start using the water machine on a daily basis and to get my own testimonial and experiences with this incredible, innovative product. And with that, I want to bring on David and pass the mic to him to talk a little bit about the water machine, how they support and interact with all of the other great products, especially the patches today. So we're fortunate to hear from our CEO and founder, David. David, thank you for being here and for sharing this incredible innovation with us today.
Hey, Wayne, it's great to see you and, of course, spend some time with you talking about our LifeWave patches and, of course, our new water machine technology that we're going to be coming out with in 2025. And today, what we want to talk about is X39, our other patches, and how exactly the water machine is going to fit into our product line, why we're coming out with it, and what's going to be the relationship between proper hydration and the functioning of the patches, and what type of benefits might people expect. And we really want to dig into this and look at the underlying mechanisms. Now, the subject of water may at first sound as if maybe this is going to be a little bit boring. But I'm going to throw this out here. I'm going to do a little bit of a tease. And there's an article that I pulled up here. And the article is drinking, well, first I'm going to say that this article comes from the Premier Men's Medical Center. And the question is, does drinking water before sex help men sexually? That's not something that a man would normally think about. And the answer is actually quite surprising. But this really gets into looking at what role that water is going to play in cardiovascular health, in the ability of our bodies to make energy, to detox, anti-aging effects. And of course, what we're doing is we're taking something that we absolutely depend on for our life, proper hydration, and we're going to use water in an entirely new way. So when we think historically about Ponce de Leon looking for the fountain of youth here in St. Augustine's, Florida, the truth is actually a lot closer to mythology and fiction, in that what we've done is we've created an entirely new form of water that can be used to deliver a youth renewal effect to the body. And of course, this has never been done before. So we want to dig into this so we can understand it and, importantly, optimize it. So when we're looking at the patches and getting the best results out of X39, we want to say, okay, what's my diet like? And am I getting enough glycine and copper in my diet so I can make copper peptide? Am I getting enough rest? Am I giving my body enough time to heal? I was doing a podcast yesterday, and the host of the podcast said, I can't live without the Eon patch because I'm using it at night, and it has made such a dramatic difference in the quality of my sleep. So we want to understand, how can we optimize the effects of the patches so people are getting the best results possible. And water plays a critical role. Now, there's a lot of interesting things we can do with water. And I'm going to give you an example of something that you're not going to hear every day. How would you like to use water as a means to increase the number of stem cells in your body? So let's say that you knew somebody that was in a car accident and they had a traumatic brain injury. Or maybe you know some athletes like American football players. Many American football players end up with traumatic brain injuries, or maybe you're suffering with a chronic injury. and you want to use X39 to support your health, what could we do with something as simple as water and oxygen to heal that chronic injury? Well, I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to dig into this so you can understand this subject of water is way more complex and way more powerful than sometimes we give it credit for. So we did an experiment here years ago when we were developing the water machine, and we were looking at all different ways that we could take this technology. One of the experiments we did was we took and I'll tell you a little bit of a secret here, okay, and use it in good health. We took the temperature of the water down to about 40 degrees, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we ran the water through a vortex in the presence of pure oxygen. And what happens if you have the right setup is that the water absorbs tremendous amounts of oxygen. Normally, water will be about 6 to 7 parts per million oxygen. We were able to get it to about 160 parts per million of oxygen. Now, you get that much oxygen in water and you drink it, and now the stem cells that are in the bone marrow, the mesenchymal stem cells, will come out into the blood. Now, a simple way to do this, where you don't have the expense of this experimental setup, because this was quite big, and it also requires tanks of pure oxygen, is you can go for hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And Dr. Efrati in Israel was the one that pioneered this. You go through this protocol. And what it will do is increase the number of circulating stem cells by about 4 to 6 times above normal. Now, keep in mind, if you're 60 years old, these are going to be 60-year-old stem cells. And that's where our X39 comes in hand, because when you elevate copper peptide, that resets the stem cells to a more youthful state. But in this particular case, you go for hyperbaric oxygen, you get more oxygen into the blood. The mechanism is still the same. You get the oxygen to cause the stem cells in the bone marrow to come out. The number of circulating stem cells goes up dramatically. And what Dr. Efrati is doing is using that to treat things like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and traumatic brain injuries. So something as simple as water and oxygen can be used to produce those kind of effects. So if you think that water is a boring subject, it's not. So let's dig into this in a little bit more detail. So here is, let's take a look at this. Here is a link to the Heart Foundation. And reason to bring this up is to look at what would be some of the signs of dehydration. Very often, because of the consumption of coffee and tea that people have today, they'll be dehydrated. And simply by giving them a glass of clean water, we can support energy production in the cell, and we can improve upon the results that people will get with our patches. So you send somebody our patches and they say, I don't know, I still have this pain. I got some relief, but not enough. They may not be hydrated properly. Let's use another example. Let's say somebody says they use our glutathione patch in the evening instead of during the day. They may wake up with a headache the next day. I've had this happen where I leave the glutathione patch on and I wake up with a headache in the morning. It's because water is supporting detoxification pathways. And if you end up being dehydrated or you detox too much, you can end up with a headache. So the answer is you want to drink more water. Fatigue is another one. So someone uses X39, they use the energy patches, and maybe they use it for a few hours and then all of a sudden they start to feel fatigued. It could be because their body is detoxing or they're dehydrated and their body doesn't have enough water to make energy. We're going to show some studies on the relationship between water and mitochondrial function, and so on and so forth. There's even a book called The Body's Many Cries for Water, and it's showing how medical disorders can result from dehydration. So, of course, we're not trying to make any medical claims here or claim that our water is going to prevent or treat any illness. We can't do that. But this is all to say that water is absolutely critical to every function in life. Going back to this other article, to emphasize the importance of hydration. We can think of this on a daily basis. Maybe, okay, we get a little tired and fatigued. We don't sleep as well. We wake up with a headache in the morning because we're dehydrated. But here's an article that shows that getting enough water on a regular basis, staying hydrated, may even reduce the risk of heart failure. So this is a pretty good reason for wanting to have a program of not consuming too much coffee and tea and getting regular consumption of water. Okay, let's go back over here in the beginning and talk about water as being the foundation of life. So here was a study that was done with E. coli. E. coli is a bacteria that's used for basic scientific studies. And the advantage is that you can do these studies very, very quickly. And of course, you don't have to worry about harming animals or human beings. But this is rather remarkable. In this basic organism, water accounts for 99. Organelle is an organ of the cell. Mitochondria is an organelle that is responsible for making energy. Okay. And not surprisingly, the membrane of the mitochondria allows water to go in and out with great ease. Now, this is very easy to understand. In order for the mitochondria to survive, it has to be able to take in nutrients such as glutathione, such as nitric oxide, for the production of energy, other enzymes, and it has to be able to get rid of metabolites from the production of energy. So in other words, water will carry fats and proteins into the mitochondria, turn them into energy, and the waste products have to get eliminated into the cell and then eventually out of the cell and then out of the body. So not surprisingly, water as a carrier has to be able to permeate. Now, very interestingly, in this study and in others, it will show that the mechanisms by which water is able to easily permeate the cells is not well known. But actually, that's not true. The surface tension of the water, so in other words, how slippery water is, will greatly determine its ability to get in and out of the cell. So like with our water machine, which is creating a highly organized structure for the water, will easily penetrate the cell. And this is why, and Wayne would say this is a marketer's dream, because he and I have had this conversation. In our studies, we showed 79 out of 80 people had an effect from our water within 15 seconds. So people are connected to our water machine, to heart rate variability, to an EEG. 15 seconds later, the readings on the machine change and there's favorable improvement. In that one person out of the 80, it took 2 minutes. So it is, Wayne is right. It's a marketer's dream. When you have a product where people respond immediately in a favorable way, that's incredible. And of course, the health effect is powerful. So water as an essential nutrient. This is also something very interesting to ponder, that we think about, well, we need to get vitamin C to help support repair of collagen. Vitamin D is an antiviral, or vitamin D will help support testosterone levels and other hormone levels. Magnesium is essential to over 300 different biochemical reactions in the body. So we think about taking supplements and their importance in the body, but we don't often think of water as an essential nutrient. But here it is right here. I would just highlight this. It acts as a, come on, go off there. It acts as a building material, as a solvent. So in other words, we can dissolve biochemicals into water and carry them into the cell. Water is the place where reactions occur in the cell and as a reactant itself. So there's hydrogen and oxygen in the cell. Of course, we talked about it being a carrier for nutrients, and of course, we use water to remove waste products from the cell. Of course, also thermoregulation. So during the summer, when our bodies start to overheat, we sweat to regulate our body temperature. That's a survival mechanism, and we can't do that if we're not hydrated properly. And even water as a lubricant and a shock absorber. Okay, now here's the surprise that you'll find extremely interesting. And I also want to talk to you about DNA itself. But first, let's talk about proteins. So in biology, the shape of cells, the shape of structures are an indicator of its function. And we did a study on SARS-CoV-2. We did a study on the mRNA vaccines. And one of the things that we saw that was shocking was that the mRNA vaccines were changing the shape of the white blood cells, of the immune cells in the body. So we drew the conclusion, and this was the conclusion of a medical doctor that is a forensic medical scientist, that the mRNA vaccines were suppressing immune activity in the body. I think that's probably a kind way to say it. So when we see a change in shape of a cell or structure, that is an indicator of a change in function. We can see this on the macro level and also on the micro level. So when we look at the eyes, we look at the cones and rods in the eyes, that's an indicator of what those structures are going to be doing in the body. And we could say the same thing about the tissue in the lungs, the heart, and so forth. Well, if we look at proteins, here's maybe the surprising thing, is that when the body goes into a state of dehydration, the shape of the protein will change, and in effect, it goes into an inactive state. You're hydrated properly, now this changes shape again, and now the protein is in, let's call it, an active state. So why would this be important? Well, let's say that you're an athlete, or let's say that you're an individual that wants to build muscle and stay strong and healthy, and you're not getting the results that you want in the gym. You might be dehydrated. You might be, from this lack of drinking enough water, you may be inhibiting your body's ability to build new muscle tissue. Interestingly enough, when we do our studies on our water machine, and here's one of the studies that we just had published recently. This was done by Doctors Caitlin and Melinda Connor. One of the things that we found in the study is that when people drink this water, I'll pull this up. You can see there's a ton of data here. Here we go. These are charts of different amino acids. Well, that's what we're looking for anyway. I'll just highlight that one that one specific data point, and we'll go down over here. But what we see, for example, is with the amino acid valine, that synthesis of valine increases to statistical significance when you drink this water. And what's important about valine? Valine is one of the branch chain amino acids, along with leucine and isoleucine, and those amino acids are involved in muscle protein synthesis. We could also see that leucine nearly hit significance. A later study, we found that it did. This is simply to say you drink our water and you give your body the ability to synthesize not only new muscle tissue, but also collagen as well, along with other things. Okay. All right. So enough with the tease from before. Here's the article that I was referring to at this website. And interestingly, the answer to this question is yes. When men stay hydrated, it helps to improve them sexually. But let's first of all look at health and what's the underlying mechanism for this. But essentially, it has to do with circulation. And that's not surprising. So when a man has erectile dysfunction, this could be psychological, but it could be, we often refer to this as the canary in the coal mine, meaning that this could be an indicator that a man is getting ready to have a heart attack, or he's in the early stages of heart disease. This is probably a good time to say I'm not a medical doctor. I'm an inventor, and so I'm not providing any medical advice. And if you have erectile dysfunction or any health disorder, please go see your doctor or your healthcare practitioner. And I'm not suggesting that you're going to be drinking water and it's going to cure your heart disease or cure erectile dysfunction. That's not the point. The point is, you may go to your doctor and you may decide to take some kind of medication for treating your ED, but this is a mistake in the sense that you're not addressing the underlying concern. You want to look at this holistically. What's your diet like? Are you drinking enough water? Because this is going to have an effect on blood volume, which will have an effect on circulation. Are you getting nutrients? We've covered this in other webinars, but you can resolve your cardiovascular issues with proper nutrition. So for example, high blood pressure. High blood pressure can be reduced by using magnesium and taurine. Speak with your doctor about that, or see a previous LifeWave Connect that we've done on this subject. So this is all to say that this could be something overlooked. Maybe you go to your doctor, you get a medication for your ED, and it doesn't address the problem. And then the doctor says, well, maybe we need to put you on testosterone therapy. And that could be totally fine. But still, you may be overlooking some of the underlying mechanisms where you should be exercising, getting proper nutrition, drinking enough water, staying away from things that we know are harmful. So this article actually isn't too bad because it does talk about how water is going to help to improve circulation, and one of the underlying mechanisms as well is improve the ability of the body to make energy. Okay, so that's kind of, thought that would be a fun. Now, bringing this back down to earth a little bit, when we think of water, we should also think of the health of our brain and cognition. And not surprisingly, water is going to be beneficial for kids as well. I lived in Georgia in the United States when my kids were very young, and I went to the pediatrician with my daughter, and the pediatrician said, "Let me see the bottle that your daughter is drinking from." And she looked at it and she saw formula inside. She said, "Okay." So I had to ask her, well, why were you looking at that? And she said, well, you would be shocked at how many parents give their babies Coca-Cola. And she was right. I was absolutely shocked. And if you want to run an experiment sometime, take some red blood cells under a microscope, add some Coca-Cola, and see what happens. It's shocking because Coca-Cola contains phosphoric acid, and it causes the cells of the body to shrivel up. It's not very good at all. But not surprisingly here, according to a new study published in the Journal of Nutrition, modulating water intake not only influences hydration among pre-adolescent children, but can also influence certain aspects of cognitive performance. So not surprisingly, you want to keep your kids well hydrated. The same rules are true also for adults. So, Wayne, the message here is that when people apply the patches, we want them to get absolutely the best results. So the difference between someone having a great experience with the patches and a so-so experience could simply be hydration. Of course, when people have our water machine, the hydration is better than anything they're going to get. But in the meantime, making sure people are getting enough clean water daily, or if they're suffering in pain, using our patches, having a glass of water, something that simple could make the difference between them getting a result or not.
It's truly an incredible innovation, David. And you're right. I commented this is a marketer's dream to have a product that's so far ahead of anything else out there that also has the ability to have such a huge impact on our health and wellness. And I know that it's the dream of anyone also, not just marketers, but anyone that is really interested in having a big impact on their overall health and wellness. Can you talk a little bit more for us about how, with X39, with some of the other patches, in addition to the hydration, how do these products really kind of work in concert together to kind of amplify health benefits?
That's a fascinating subject because I think what I would say is let's look at the goal. So the ultimate goal that we would want to establish is that if we had a product or a series of products that could stop human aging and even preferably reverse human aging, then we could say, okay, we've defined that as a goal. Now, what do we need to do? So when we're looking at, and not everyone is going to share that goal, and that's so totally fine, but that's a goal for the company. That would be a benefit that we would like people to have. So I would look at this like you would look at an orchestra. So I love the music from people like Alan Silvestri and Hans Zimmer because they do much of the music for the superhero movies. And you could have, let's say, the theme from Man of Steel, where there's an incredible guitar riff. But if you don't have the drums going along with the guitar and the violin and the cello, it's not going to sound quite right. So this is to say that when we're thinking about having optimum health, we should be thinking about all of those pieces. So X39 is our flagship product, and this is what people should be starting with because the effect is by far the most powerful out of all of the products. And X39 is going to provide just about every benefit that someone would want to have. Now, that said, there are other patches for very specific applications to support the overall objective of staying younger longer. So let's look at some of those. Glutathione. It's known that our lifespan is directly correlated to our body's glutathione levels. And that should tell us about how important glutathione is and what role it has in the body. And another indicator is that glutathione is found nearly everywhere. So glutathione protects our hearing. This was identified by the U.S. military. I was down at Army Aeromedical, and the U.S. Army wants all active military personnel on glutathione because it protects them from loud noises. Glutathione is found in tears. It protects our eyesight. Glutathione is found in the liver, so it's going to assist with detoxification. Glutathione plays a critical role in our immune function, and glutathione is found in the mitochondria. It protects the cell from oxidative stress as a result of the metabolism. So we could say, okay, if our goal is to support our immune health, protect our hearing, our eyesight, and so forth, we want to keep our glutathione levels elevated. So that's how the glutathione patch complements X39. We take carnosine as another example. Carnosine is a lot more narrow in biological effects than glutathione, but on the other hand, it's incredibly powerful. So carnosine, we use that with X39, and carnosine through different metabolic pathways is going to support the cognition, right, our cognitive health. So we have better brain function. It supports the health of our heart, and it actually improves athletic performance. Carnosine acts to buffer the pH, so it improves our strength and stamina. Carnosine is a mild anabolic. It can support muscle growth. Carnosine has actually even been found to protect the telomeres. And in longevity studies, it's been shown that mammals can live 30 to 40% longer when they supplement with carnosine. So each patch, I would say X39 is the conductor. That's the centerpiece. And then the other patches are important pieces to the puzzle. So we use a product like X39, and then let's say someone has a problem sleeping at night. Maybe they want to use the Eon patch, Silent Nights, Alavita. So it supports the overall activity of X39, and the water machine supports all of the patches for all the reasons that we've discussed.
That's great, David. I love the orchestra analogy. I think that's absolutely perfect, where you can enjoy and find benefit, from listening to somebody play the violin or a single instrument. But when all of these are brought together, I think something very magical happens. Physically, emotionally, we respond when there are all these different notes being played, that it's not just the one. I also think it's really important that you started out saying that the X39 is kind of the tip of the spear, that's the best place to start. And I've been kind of watching some of the comments along the way, and I know you touched on this, but I think it's an important point to kind of drive home a little bit. One of the questions was, is the water, after it's gone through the processes, is it only beneficial if people are taking the patches, or will people still experience benefits, if they are introduced to the water machine and that product alone initially?
Yeah, absolutely. So the studies that we've done, we've just completed our 5th study on the water machine. And in the people that have been tested, they're only drinking the water. As a matter of fact, they're not allowed to participate in the study if they're using LifeWave patches, because we don't want that to be a conflict. We don't want that to be a variable in the experiments. So that's part of the inclusion criteria in the study. So when we articulate, well, what are some of the benefits of drinking this water, as you and I talked about at the global conference, those benefits come from only drinking the water, not a combination of the water and the patches. So this is to say that when people drink the water, if that's how they're coming into LifeWave, they're going to get benefits just from that. Now, because the water is improving protein synthesis, it's improving the metabolism, we encourage people to get proper nutrition to take full advantage of that. So in other words, if someone is a vegan and they're drinking the water and they're saying, hey, I thought I was going to heal faster with this, but I'm not noticing a difference. Well, it could be they're not getting enough protein in their diet um, to take advantage of the mechanisms that the water is turning on. So this is to say that yes, you can just drink the water and get some phenomenal benefits, but we want to encourage you to get proper nutrition, and the patches absolutely have value with the water.
Thank you for that. One of the things that really stands out, every time I hear it is how quickly consuming this water starts to have benefits on someone. Again, the 79 out of 80 in 10 to 15 seconds, and then that last one person only having to wait about 2 minutes. Can you talk a little bit about the cumulative effect and the importance of taking this over time, not just kind of the single glass or single dose? Dose is probably not the right term, but can you talk a little bit more about the benefits of the ongoing use of this?
So these are when the water machines come out, these are going to be some of the studies that we do. So up to this point, the studies that we've done is we collect bioelectrical data. The ones I've mentioned are heart rate variability and EEG, but there's other bioelectrical data that we'll collect. We've used infrared, biopulsar. We take that data, give people a glass of water, and then in about a 20-minute window following that, we've collected their results post drinking the water. And that's what the data has been based on. So the cumulative effects, we're starting to manufacture the machines now. And once those come out, we'll be able to do the long-term studies. And the type of things that we're looking for are, how does this affect the length of the telomeres? What effect does it have on gene expression? What effect does this have long-term on mitochondrial function? Based on the data that we have today, we have been able to form a hypothesis of what will happen, but now we have to prove this out. So the way I would look at this is over a 7-year period of time, all the cells in the body divide and are replaced. So the person you're going to be 7 years from now is not the same person that you are today. All those cells change. So we look at data over a period of 6 months to a year. In 6 months of drinking the water, that's when you first start to see, and this is based on studies that we've done with X39 and other patches. We have done telomere testing with our patches, for example. So you see changes at the 6-month mark, and of course, over the course of the year. So that's where we would expect to see the big long-term effects starting to shape up. So what we expect to see is very favorable changes relative to youth and longevity. And those will be marked principally by how this is upregulating mitochondrial function, which we've already measured, how it's lengthening the telomeres, and how it's going to be favorably changing the epigenetics of the body, so genes will express in a more youthful state. One of the things I think also I would say to that is, I'll talk about this at Vision, but there simply wasn't enough time to cover this at our global conference. I got into the mechanisms by how I discovered this by making observations in lobsters and then also in the book of Genesis. But what I didn't have time to get into was how I went back the other way and I looked at, okay, let's take a look at the story of the tree of life, and can we find that mathematical data in lobsters? And because lobsters are immortal, would we expect to see that the mathematical data in the story of the tree of life shows up in lobsters? And to my great delight, the answer is yes. So in other words, the story of the tree of life is not just simply a story. God encoded mathematical data in the tree of life story that shows up in lobsters and explains how lobsters increase their production of telomerase and never age. It all comes back. So you would have to, even as a person that maybe is an atheist or someone that is, in the margins, you'd have to say this can't be a coincidence. Back 5,000 years ago, whenever the story to when the book of Genesis was written, there's no way they could know that frequency information was going to transform into wavelengths of light that are in lobsters that are responsible for lobsters never aging. So you'd have to draw the conclusion that there is a God, there is a creator, and all of this is connected. And what's so exciting about this is that that's a primary discovery, and what we're doing with this information is going to the next generation. So this is the research that we're doing today that will show up a year or two from now. But we're going to, these machines will come with a cartridge where you can upgrade it, and you can do some extraordinary things with this water that is totally impossible today. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's amazing how far you've looked down the road on this product, knowing what you want to do with it a year from now, 2 years from now, and how to continue to enhance it and make it even more incredible over time. I think that's beautiful. And also, where the inspiration for this and other technologies has come from is also really beautiful, where you get some of these catalysts and some of this inspiration to inform these innovations. A couple questions that have come up as well in the chat. And I know you've chatted or spoke with us about this, at conference and then as well on the last one, but do you mind touching on the filtration system again and just helping people understand the difference between, other water filtration systems that are on the market and why this is really so unique and innovative?
Yeah. So an important part in the design. So the fundamental discovery the team that we have here is, I had this idea that we could embed photons of light in water by restructuring the water. So the initial experiments were to take water, put it through a PEM fuel cell, break the water down into hydrogen and oxygen, and then recombine the hydrogen and oxygen in the presence of a catalyst and in the presence of light or specific electromagnetic fields. And that is what resulted in this novel water. So when we were actually looking at, okay, well, how do we take this and put it into a machine? The obvious question that comes up is, well, what type of water are we starting with? We don't want to put tap water into this system because then we'll end up with all these harmful chemicals that we don't want to be drinking. So we knew from the very beginning we were going to have a very high-end filtration system. So it actually delayed the project by around 8 months. We went to all different manufacturers to work with and basically said, we need to have the best filter available. We need to be able to get rid of microplastics, the forever chemicals, in addition to the things that you would expect, like chlorine, heavy metals, pesticides. So the first stage of the filter removes all of those harmful things from the water. We then have a second stage that is a carbon block that acts to be as a second stage of filtration, but it also helps to put hydrogen into the water because we need to have oxygen and hydrogen in the water to basically create this effect. So it is not technically a hydrogenated water or hydrogen water as people would become familiar with because we're creating an entirely different effect. But the filtration is important because it means that people can put tap water into this and get absolutely clean water out.
Yeah, that is such an innovative multi-stage process that it goes through. So a couple more questions that keep coming up over and over. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot. So you can always say, hey, there's going to be more information at Vision. But the one is on approximate price range. And I've loved some of the comments where they've said, what's the price? what's your health worth? You know, it's incredible that, you know, people immediately see the health benefit and understand that it is an investment in your long-term health. Are we at a point where we can give just kind of general direction on pricing, or is that something that's better saved for vision?
Yeah, I think we'll unveil it at Vision, but I am going to answer the question this way. And it would be that when we started this, the experimental setup that I had in my lab, uh, the original equipment, it was about $30,000 to $35,000, the cost of the equipment that we had to make this water. And it was on a bench about 3 feet wide and roughly 9 feet long. Back in the initial phase of discovery, I had no idea how we were going to get this into something so small that it could fit on a kitchen counter, and how in the world we were going to get the cost down into something that people could afford. But over time, you know, we innovated, we worked with some great engineers, and we started to come up with solutions for each of the systems. But one of the challenges that we have is that the cost of goods on this is high. And there's also a number of variables that are coming in. I would say the tariffs, the potential tariffs that are being discussed between the United States, Europe, Mexico, Canada, Asia, could have an adverse effect on the end cost of manufacturing the machines. But what I would say is, when we've spoken with our leaders about this, they've recommended a price range, and they want us to be competitive with other products on the market. Kangen is probably a good example. Our leaders would say that while they know the equipment is priceless for what it does, and we have no competitor, we want as many people as possible to be able to afford this. So that's going to be the goal. The other thing that we're doing is we are going to be working with a vendor to provide financing. So if the initial purchase price is out of reach for people, that they could opt to finance it and pay for it over time. So that's going to be the objective. The other thing that we'll do is we of course have an incentive now. I really want to have an incentive where anybody can win a water machine and pay for it through hard work. We want as many people as possible to benefit from this. So just like we have incentives where people can win free trips, we want to put together the type of incentives where people, bottom line is, we know how powerful this technology is, so let's get it to as many people as possible.
Yeah, that just made a lot of people happy. So thank you for that. One more tactical question. There is a few questions coming up just around kind of maintenance, the frequency, the need to replace filters. Can you share a little bit kind of on, you know, what the ongoing process to keep that, you know, working in top shape is?
Really simple. We've tried to make this as simple as possible. There's a big touch screen display on the top. So literally you just press one button on the screen and the water will dispense. The touch screen will also tell people how long it is for the water to process. It will tell people when it's time to change the filters. The primary filter with daily use, you'll change about once every 6 months. But it does depend on how many people in your home are using it. But if we used a rough estimate of about every 6 months, that's a good ballpark. The secondary filter is about once every 6 to 12 months. And you just simply open the panel on the right side of the machine, and each of those filters unplugs, and then you plug them back in. And of course, we'll have complete instructions and videos on how to change those filters.
Thank you. I think one of my favorite comments so far throughout the hour is this tech is going to change so many lives. Thank you, David and LifeWave team. I think that sums up probably how everybody here is feeling This has been an incredible hour. We're coming up on the end here. We unfortunately maxed out again at 3,000. So we'll have to try to find a way to make sure that more people are able to join. Of course, there will be a replay and access to this later. David, thank you so much for bringing this incredible innovation, for helping all of us as part of LifeWave to really stay on the cutting edge of health and wellness. This is a special year and a special time of year for many reasons, closing out 20 amazing, impactful years, moving into this next chapter. And again, a very special part of the year here where we get to spend time with friends, family. Do you mind sharing just a few thoughts that you have kind of as we're getting towards the close of this 20 years of LifeWave?
Absolutely. First, I think I would say this is going to be a bit cryptic, but I would say I wish I could tell people some of the things that I've seen happen when people drink this water, but it would get into making medical claims that we're not legally allowed to make. So I'll have to say that. But when we release the technology and people start to use it, they'll be legitimately shocked at some of the things that they see in an incredibly great way. So that's with that. First, I'm incredibly grateful for the year that we've had. This has been our 20th anniversary, as you know. And, looking back, the time between especially the time between August and October, where we got to have our 20th anniversary cruise, the grand opening of our office and welcome center in Draper, the incredible global conference that we had. It's something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. So I want to take this time to thank our community for making LifeWave #1 and making this the best year ever. Secondly, we're living in some incredibly uncertain times with the wars and the conflicts that are going on. But what I would say with that is we can always be one step away from living in a peaceful world and living in a world where there is no disease, there is no suffering. We have an abundant amount of energy, clean food, clean water, and it's up to us, meaning entrepreneurs in our community and in our industry, to show that there is a better way. And each of us can be ambassadors of hope. And that's really where this starts. We can be examples that there are solutions. People don't have to suffer in pain. They don't have to suffer with disease. And by changing one life at a time, this has a positive impact on the world around us. And in the future, we want to continue to build on that message by introducing these new technologies. In the future, as you know, we'll have a clean, abundant power generation system that I believe is going to help transform the world again in an incredibly positive way. So I would say the future for LifeWave has never been better. And ultimately, even though today we are focusing in on this one area of health, this has some incredibly far-reaching prospects, and that is only going to become amplified dramatically with the water technology. There's going to be some things that at conference next year, a new technology that I'm bringing that I want to share with everyone, and it only serves one purpose, and this is a technology to promote peace and harmony in the world. It's a technological solution that I'm looking at to some of the problems that the world is dealing with today. So I'm incredibly excited about the future and what's to come, and that LifeWave has positioned itself as being this beacon of truth and hope and light in the world. And I couldn't be any more proud of our community for what they've achieved.
Thank you, David. That's such a beautiful thought to end on. We're all so excited for this next year, for the incredible products that are coming out. Thank you, our global leaders, for helping to share these incredible products and benefits with people around the world. And wish you all happy holidays, and look forward to speaking again at the next LifeWave Connect. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Wayne.